German Shepherd was found. Inside a broken drum. What baby did next left everyone in tears. What happened that foggy morning would shock an entire town and change countless lives forever. Before we begin this incredible story, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from right now. The construction site sat abandoned at the edge of Riverside Town, wrapped in morning fog so thick you could barely see 10 feet ahead. 5-year-old Ryan Miller pressed his small face against the car window, watching the mist swirl around the broken machinery and rusted equipment. His parents had stopped at the nearby campground for their weekend trip, but Ryan couldn't sleep. Something was calling to him from that forgotten place. "Mama, can I go look at the big machines?" Ryan whispered, tugging at Emma Miller's sleeve as she prepared breakfast at their campsite. The fog made everything look like a fairy tale, mysterious and full of secrets. "Absolutely not, Ryan," Emma said, not even looking up from the camping stove. "That place is dangerous. There's broken glass, rusty metal, who knows what else." But Ryan had already made up his mind. While his father David was busy setting up the tent properly and his mother was distracted with cooking, the little boy slipped away. His bright green eyes sparkled with curiosity as he walked toward the construction site, his small feet making no sound on the damp ground. The whimpering started soft, so quiet that Ryan thought he was imagining it. He stopped walking, holding his breath to listen better. There it was again, a sound that made his heart hurt even though he didn't understand why. It was coming from somewhere deep in the construction site, past the yellow warning tape that adults always told him meant danger. Ryan ducked under the tape. His dinosaur t-shirt caught on a nail, tearing slightly, but he didn't care. The sound was getting louder now, more desperate. It reminded him of when his neighbor's puppy got stuck under their porch last summer, scared and alone. Then he saw it. A massive industrial drum, the kind used for storing chemicals or oil, lay on its side among piles of concrete blocks and twisted metal. The drum was broken, split open at one end, but not enough for anything large to escape. The whimpering was coming from inside. Ryan's hands shook as he approached. Through the jagged opening, he could see eyes, brown eyes full of pain and fear, watching him from the darkness. As his eyes adjusted, he made out the shape of a German Shepherd, pressed against the back of the drum, trembling. "Hi, doggy," Ryan whispered, kneeling in the dirt. "Are you stuck?" The dog's tail gave the tiniest movement, not quite a wag, but an acknowledgement. Ryan could see now that the animal was in terrible condition. Its fur was matted with dirt and what looked like dried blood. One paw was held at an odd angle, and there were marks around its neck where a collar had been, the fur rubbed away to show raw skin. "Don't be scared," Ryan said, using the same voice his mama used when he had nightmares. "I'm Ryan. I'm 5 years old, and I'm going to help you." The German Shepherd's eyes never left Ryan's face. There was something in those eyes that Ryan recognized, even at his young age. It was the same look he'd had when the bigger kids at preschool had taken his lunch money and nobody helped him. It was the look of someone who had given up hope. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out the granola bar his mother had given him for later. His small fingers fumbled with the wrapper. "Are you hungry? My mama says I should always share my food." Very slowly, Ryan extended his hand toward the opening. The dog flinched, pressing itself harder against the back of the drum. But Ryan didn't pull back. He just held his hand there, patient as only a child can be, the granola bar balanced on his palm. Minutes passed. The fog swirled around them, making the rest of the world disappear. It was just Ryan and the dog, locked in a moment of trust-building that neither would forget. Finally, the German Shepherd moved. Inch by painful inch, it crawled forward. Ryan could see its whole body now, thin to the point of starvation, ribs showing through patchy fur, scars crisscrossing its back. When the dog finally reached the granola bar, it took it so gently that Ryan barely felt the touch of its teeth. "Good doggy," Ryan whispered, tears running down his cheeks though he didn't know why he was crying. "What's your name?" The dog's tail moved again, stronger this time. Ryan decided right then that this dog needed a name that meant something, a name that showed it was brave and strong, even when it was hurt. "I'm going to call you Ranger," Ryan announced, "like the forest rangers who protect the animals." "Is that okay?" Ranger's response was to lick Ryan's fingers, where crumbs from the granola bar remained. The boy giggled, the sound bright in the gloom of the construction site. Ryan, where are you?" His mother's voice cut through the moment like a knife. Ryan could hear the panic in it, the fear that every parent knows when their child disappears. "I'm here, Mama," Ryan called back, not moving from his spot by the drum. "I found a doggie who needs help." The sound of running feet, then both his parents appeared through the fog. Emma's face went from relief to horror in a second when she saw where Ryan was, kneeling in the dirt next to a rusty drum with what looked like a dangerous stray dog. "Ryan, get away from there right now," David commanded, his voice sharp with fear. "That dog could have rabies. It could bite you." "He won't bite," Ryan said stubbornly, not moving. "His name is Ranger, and he's hurt. Someone put him in this drum and left him here." "We don't know that," Emma said, though her voice softened slightly seeing the condition of the animal. "Maybe it crawled in there on its own." But even as she said it, Emma could see what Ryan had seen. The drum's opening was too small for a dog that size to have entered easily. Someone had either forced the animal in, or it had been much smaller when it entered, which meant it had been trapped for a very long time. "Please, Mama," Ryan begged. "We have to help him. He's scared and hurt and all alone." David stepped closer, ready to physically pull his son away if necessary. But as he approached, he saw something that made him pause. The German Shepherd wasn't showing any signs of aggression. Despite its fear and pain, it was watching Ryan with something that looked remarkably like hope. "The dog needs professional help," David said finally. "We should call animal control." "No!" Ryan's shout startled everyone, including Ranger, who whimpered and tried to retreat deeper into the drum. "They'll take him away and hurt him more. Please, Daddy, can't we help him ourselves?" Before his parents could respond, the sound of trucks arriving made them all turn. 3 construction workers in hard hats and fluorescent vests were walking toward them, their faces angry. "Hey! This is private property," the largest man shouted. Ryan would later learn his name was Mr. Brooks, the construction foreman. "You people need to leave right now. There's a dog trapped in this drum," Emma explained, putting a protective hand on Ryan's shoulder. "We were just trying to figure out how to help it." Mr. Brooks looked at the drum and laughed, a sound without any humor in it. "That mutt's been here for 3 days. We've been waiting for it to die or leave on its own. Saves us the trouble of dealing with it." Ryan's mouth fell open. "You knew he was here and you didn't help him?" "Kid, that's not a pet," Mr. Brooks said dismissively. "That's a problem. Probably rabid or sick. Best thing is to let nature take its course." "That's horrible," Emma said, her maternal instincts finally overriding her fear. "It's a living creature." "It's a liability," Mr. Brooks corrected. "If that thing bites someone on my site, who gets sued? Me. So, yeah, we're leaving it alone. And you need to leave too, before I call the cops for trespassing." The other workers had gathered around now, creating a semicircle that made Ryan feel trapped. He pressed closer to the drum, his small body forming a barrier between the men and Ranger. "The dog's not bothering anyone," David said, surprising everyone including himself by defending the animal. "Can't we at least call a vet?" "On whose dime?" Mr. Brooks asked. "You want to pay for it? Be my guest. But that animal doesn't leave this drum on my watch. Too dangerous." That's when they heard it, a low rumble from inside the drum. Not quite a growl, more like a moan of pain. Ranger was trying to move, responding to the harsh voices and aggressive postures of the men surrounding them. "See?" Mr. Brooks said triumphantly. "Aggressive! I told you! He's not aggressive! He's scared!" Ryan shouted, tears streaming. Down his face now. "You're all being mean, and he knows it. Dogs can tell when people are mean." An older man in a security uniform appeared through the fog, walking with a slight limp. His name tag read Samuel, and his weathered face showed concern as he took in the scene. "What's all the commotion?" Mr. Samuel asked, his voice gentle despite its gravelly quality. "Kid found the stray," Mr. Brooks explained. "I'm telling them to leave." Mr. Samuel looked at Ryan, still positioned protectively by the drum, then at Ranger visible through the opening. Something in the old man's expression changed. "That's no stray," he said quietly. "Look at the size of him, the bone structure. That's a trained dog, probably police or military." Everyone turned to look more carefully. Mr. Samuel was right. Despite the poor condition, there was something about Ranger's build and bearing that suggested training and breeding. "So what?" Mr. Brooks said, though with less confidence. "It's still a problem." A trained dog doesn't just end up in a drum by accident, Mr. Samuel continued. Someone put him there. That's animal cruelty, and that's a crime. The construction workers exchanged uncomfortable glances. The situation had suddenly become more complicated than just shooing away a stray. Ryan took advantage of the moment of uncertainty. Mr. Samuel, can you help us get Ranger out, please? The old security guard looked at the boy's earnest face, then at the dog. Ranger? You named him? Every dog needs a name, Ryan said simply. Even sad ones. Mr. Samuel knelt down beside Ryan, his joints creaking. You're right about that, son. He pulled a flashlight from his belt and shone it into the drum, getting a better look at Ranger's condition. What he saw made him suck in a sharp breath. This dog's been abused, he said, anger creeping into his voice. Those aren't just injuries from being trapped. Someone hurt this animal deliberately. Emma gasped, pulling Ryan closer. Who would do such a thing? You'd be surprised, Mr. Samuel said darkly. I've seen a lot in my years. But this, he shook his head. Mr. Brooks, we need to get this dog out. It's the right thing to do. Not my problem, Mr. Brooks said, but he was backing away now, clearly wanting to distance himself from the situation. You want to deal with it? That's on you. But if anyone gets hurt, I'm not liable. The construction workers followed their boss, disappearing back into the fog. Only Mr. Samuel remained with the Miller family. We need help, David said, pulling out his phone. I'll call animal control. No, Daddy, please, Ryan interrupted. They'll take Ranger away. He needs us. Mr. Samuel put a weathered hand on David's arm. The boy might have a point. Animal control in this town. Well, they're not known for their gentle handling, especially with large dogs that look like they might be dangerous. Then what do we do? Emma asked. We can't just leave him here. Ryan had been thinking while the adults talked. With the determination that only a 5-year-old possesses, he made a decision. I'm staying here with Ranger until someone helps him. Ryan, you can't, Emma started. Yes, I can, Ryan said firmly. Ranger waited 3 days for someone to care. I'm not leaving him alone again. The German shepherd, as if understanding the conversation, managed to drag himself closer to the opening. One paw, the uninjured one, reached out through the gap toward Ryan. The boy immediately took it in both his small hands. See, Ryan said. He knows I'm his friend. Friends don't leave friends. Mr. Samuel stood up slowly. There's a veterinarian in town, Doctor. Lisa Chen. She's different from the others. Actually cares more about animals than money. I could call her, see if she'd come take a look. Would she? Emma asked hopefully. Only one way to find out. Mr. Samuel pulled out an old flip phone and dialed a number from memory. The conversation was brief, but when he hung up, he was almost smiling. She's coming. Said she'll be here in 20 minutes. Ryan beamed, still holding Ranger's paw. Did you hear that, boy? A nice doctor is coming to help you. Ranger's tail thumped weakly against the inside of the drum. It was the strongest response they'd seen from him yet. While they waited, Ryan talked to Ranger constantly, telling him about his toys, his favorite foods, his best friend at school. The dog listened, those brown eyes never leaving the boy's face. Emma and David watched in amazement as their usually shy son opened up completely to this injured animal. He's never like this with people, Emma murmured to her husband. Remember how long it took him to warm up to his teacher? David nodded, watching his son with new eyes. Maybe some connections don't need time. They just happen. Mr. Samuel had walked the perimeter of the area, looking for clues about how Ranger had ended up in the drum. He came back with a grim expression. There are tire tracks over there, about 3 days old judging by the rain patterns. Someone drove right up to this spot and dumped him. But why? Emma asked. Why not just abandon him somewhere? Why trap him in a drum? To make sure he couldn't follow them home, Mr. Samuel said quietly. Whoever did this wanted this dog to disappear completely. A white van pulled up, and a young Asian woman in veterinary scrubs jumped out. Dr. Lisa Chen was small, but moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. She carried a medical bag and approached them quickly. Where's the patient? She asked, then saw Ryan by the drum. Oh my, you must be the brave boy Mr. Samuel told me about. Ryan blushed, but didn't let go of Ranger's paw. "This is Ranger. He's hurt real bad." Dr. Chen knelt beside them, her professional demeanor softening as she saw the condition of the dog. "Hello, Ranger," she said gently. "I'm going to help you, okay?" She pulled out a small flashlight and examined what she could see of the dog through the opening. Her face grew increasingly serious as she cataloged the injuries. "This dog needs immediate medical attention," she said. "Dehydration, malnutrition, possible broken ribs, infected wounds. But—" She paused, pulling out a strange-looking device from her bag. "What's that?" Ryan asked, curious despite his worry. "It's a microchip scanner, Doctor," Chen explained. "Most pets have a tiny chip under their skin that identifies them. Let me see if Ranger has one." She reached through the opening carefully, and Ranger allowed her to scan his neck area. The device beeped. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she read the display. "This can't be right." "What is it?" David asked. "According to this chip, this dog's name is actually Thunder, and he was reported dead 6 months ago. The owner, a Marcus Webb, filed an insurance claim for $10,000, saying the dog died of cancer." Everyone stared at the drum in shock. Ryan's voice was small when he spoke. "Someone lied about Ranger dying?" "That's insurance fraud," Mr. Samuel said grimly, "and animal cruelty. This Webb fellow has some explaining to do." Dr. Chen was already on her phone, calling someone. "Yes, I need to report a case of insurance fraud and severe animal abuse. I have a microchip dog here that was reported dead 6 months ago." While she gave details to whoever was on the other end, Ryan leaned close to the drum opening. "Your real name is Thunder? That's a good name too, but you'll always be Ranger to me." The dog's response was to lick Ryan's hand again, sealing their bond. "We need to get him out of there now, Doctor," Chen said after ending her call. "The police are sending someone, but we can't wait. Every minute counts with injuries this severe." "How do we do it?" Emma asked. "The drum is too heavy to move, and the opening is too small." Dr. Chen examined the drum more carefully. "We need to cut it open. Does anyone have tools?" Mr. Samuel shook his head. "The construction crew has some, but they won't help." "Then we'll have to do this carefully, Doctor," Chen said. She looked at Ryan. "Sweetheart, I need you to keep Ranger calm while we try to widen this opening." "Can you do that?" Ryan nodded solemnly. "I won't let him be scared." What followed was an hour of careful work. Dr. Chen used tools from her van to slowly bend back the metal edges of the opening, making it wider, bit by bit. Every movement had to be slow and deliberate to avoid startling or injuring Ranger further. Ryan never stopped talking to the dog, his voice a constant comfort. "You're being so brave," Ryan told Ranger. "Braver than when I had to get shots at the doctor. And that was really scary. But Mama held my hand, just like I'm holding your paw." Finally, the opening was wide enough. Dr. Chen prepared a sedative. "This will help him relax so we can get him out without causing more pain." "Will it hurt him?" Ryan asked worriedly. "No, sweetheart. It will help him feel better." After the injection, Ranger's eyes began to droop, but even as he was falling asleep, he kept his paw in Ryan's hand. "I'll be right here when you wake up," Ryan promised. "Right here." It took all 4 of them to carefully extract Ranger from the drum. When they finally had him on a blanket doctor, Chen had spread on the ground. The full extent of his condition became clear. The dog was skeletal thin, covered in infected wounds, with clear signs of abuse beyond just neglect. "This dog has been through hell, Doctor," Chen said quietly. "But he's alive, and that's what matters." "Can you save him?" Ryan asked, his voice breaking. Dr. Chen looked at the little boy whose compassion had probably saved this dog's life. "I'm going to do everything I can, but Ranger is going to need more than medical care. He's going to need love, patience, and someone who believes in him." "I believe in him," Ryan said immediately. "I'll love him forever and ever." Emma and David exchanged glances. They had come here for a camping trip and were now in the middle of a rescue operation for a severely abused dog. But looking at their son's face, they both knew their lives had just changed. "We need to get him to my clinic immediately, Doctor," Chen said, already preparing to load Ranger into her van. "Will you come with us? He seems to trust your son." "Of course," Emma said without hesitation. As they prepared to leave, "Mr. Samuel pulled something from his pocket, a worn business card. "This is my number. I want to know how this turns out," and he looked at Ryan. "You're a brave kid." Not many people would have stopped to help. Ryan looked back at the broken drum, now empty and somehow looking even more sinister. Someone has to help. If good people don't help, then bad people win. The simple wisdom of the 5-year-old left the adults speechless. As they loaded into vehicles to follow Dr. Chen to her clinic, none of them noticed the black sedan parked on the street just beyond the construction site. The man inside was watching them through binoculars, his phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, they found him," the man said quietly. "No, he's still alive. They're taking him to a vet." A pause. "I understand. I'll handle it." The sedan pulled away, following at a distance as the small convoy headed toward Dr. Chen's clinic. At the clinic, Dr. Chen immediately began working on Ranger. Ryan refused to leave, sitting in the corner of the examination room and watching everything with wide eyes. The dog, despite being sedated, seemed aware of the boy's presence, his eyes tracking to Ryan whenever he stirred. "The good news, Doctor," Chen said after her initial examination, "is that there's no permanent damage that can't be healed. The bad news is that this is going to be a long recovery." "How long?" David asked, already calculating costs in his head. "Months, and it won't be cheap. We're looking at surgery for that paw, treatment for infections, nutritional therapy, possible physical therapy." "We'll figure it out," Emma said firmly, surprising herself with the conviction in her voice. "Ryan's right. Someone has to help." Dr. Chen smiled. "I can work with you on payment plans. And honestly, seeing a child care this much about an animal, it reminds me why I became a vet in the first place." As she worked, cleaning wounds and starting IV fluids, Dr. Chen made a discovery that changed everything. "These scars on his legs, these are from fighting. But look here," she pointed to Ranger's mouth. "No scars, no worn teeth from biting. This dog was put into fights but refused to fight back." "What kind of monster makes a dog fight?" Ryan asked, his innocent mind unable to comprehend such cruelty. "Bad people," Mr. Samuel said, having stayed to see things through. "But that's not what's important. What's important is that Ranger refused to become what they wanted. He kept his good heart." Dr. Chen pulled up information on her computer. Thunder, or Ranger as you call him, was registered as a therapy dog. He was trained to work with disabled children. Everyone stared at the injured dog on the table. A therapy dog, trained to help children, forced into fighting rings and then left to die when he wouldn't perform. "That's why he's so gentle with Ryan," Emma breathed. "It's his training, but also his nature. We have to find who did this," David said, his usual calm demeanor replaced by quiet anger. "This Marcus Webb needs to pay for what he's done." "The police will investigate," Dr. Chen assured them. "But right now, Ranger needs to focus on healing." Ryan stood up and walked to the examination table. Ranger's eyes followed him, alert despite the medication. "You were supposed to help kids like me, weren't you?" Ryan said softly. "But bad people stopped you." "That's not fair." Ranger's tail moved slightly, the best he could manage. "But you know what?" Ryan continued. "Now I'm going to help you. And when you're all better, we can help other kids together. Would you like that?" This time, Ranger's tail movement was definitely a wag. Dr. Chen had to turn away to wipe her eyes. Even Mr. Samuel cleared his throat roughly. "The police detective is here," her assistant announced from the doorway. Detective James Carter entered, a tall man with kind eyes but a serious expression. He took in the scene, the injured dog, the crying child, the emotional adults, and his face hardened. "I've seen some bad things in my career," he said quietly, "but animal abuse always gets to me, especially when it involves a service animal." He pulled out a notebook. "Tell me everything from the beginning." Ryan was the one who spoke up first, describing finding Ranger in the drum, how scared and hurt he was, how the construction workers wanted to leave him to die. His innocent recounting of events was more powerful than any adult testimony could have been. "And Mr. Samuel said someone dumped him there on purpose," Ryan added, "to make him disappear." Detective Carter nodded, taking notes. "We've been tracking a dog fighting ring in the area. This might be the break we needed." He looked at Dr. Chen. "The chip says Marcus Webb." Yes, claimed the dog died of cancer 6 months ago. Collected $10,000 in insurance. Webb, Detective Carter muttered. That name's come up before. He left town right after filing that claim. Said he was too grief-stricken to stay. More like he was covering his tracks, Mr. Samuel said. Detective Carter's phone rang. He answered, his face growing more serious as he listened. I see. Yes, keep surveillance on him. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at the group. We just got a tip that Webb is back in town. Apparently he heard someone found his dead dog. He's coming for Ranger? Ryan asked, fear in his voice. Not if I have anything to say about it, Detective Carter said firmly. This dog is evidence now, and he's under police protection. But even as he said it, everyone felt a chill. If Webb was willing to abuse a dog and commit insurance fraud, what else was he capable of? I'm posting an officer here, Detective Carter decided. Nobody gets near this dog without authorization. Ryan moved closer to Ranger again. I won't let anyone hurt you again, he whispered. I promise. The dog's eyes, clouded with pain but clear with understanding, looked at the boy with complete trust. Whatever happened next, Ranger knew he was no longer alone. He had found his guardian angel in the form of a 5-year-old boy who refused to walk away from suffering. As the adults continued discussing security measures and medical treatment, Ryan stayed by Ranger's side, holding his paw and humming softly. It was the same song his mother hummed when he was sick, and somehow it seemed to comfort the injured dog. Outside, the black sedan had parked across from the clinic. The man inside was joined by another, and they watched the building with cold, calculating eyes. The boss wants the dog eliminated, the first man said. It knows too much, could lead back to the whole operation. What about the kid? Collateral damage if necessary, but the dog is the priority. Dead dogs don't testify. They settled in to wait, unaware that Mr. Samuel, ever vigilant, had noticed their car from the window and was already texting Detective Carter about the suspicious vehicle. The battle for Ranger's life was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The storm clouds had been gathering all afternoon, but nobody paid them much attention. Inside Dr. Chen's clinic, Ryan hadn't left Ranger's side for 3 days straight. His parents had tried to convince him to go home, to sleep in his own bed, but the 5-year-old refused with a determination that surprised everyone. What if he wakes up and I'm not here? Ryan said, his small hand never leaving Ranger's fur. What if he thinks I abandoned him like the bad people did? Dr. Chen had set up a small cot in the recovery room, and that's where Ryan slept, ate, and spent every moment. The German Shepherd was slowly improving, the IV fluids and antibiotics working their magic, but he still couldn't stand on his own. Every time he tried, his legs would shake and he'd collapse back onto the blankets. His muscles have atrophied, Doctor. Chen explained to Emma and David during one of their visits. It's going to take time and physical therapy before he can walk properly again. But Ryan didn't care how long it took. He'd created an entire routine around Ranger's care. Every morning, he'd read to the dog from his picture books. During lunch, he'd share his sandwich, even though Ranger was still on a special diet. And at night, he'd sing the songs his mother used to sing to him. Detective Carter had been by twice more, each time with new information that made the situation more serious. Marcus Webb isn't just involved in dogfighting, he told them on his latest visit. We think he's part of a larger network that steals trained service and therapy dogs, then either sells them or uses them for underground fighting. But why Ranger specifically? David asked. Ranger, wasn't just any therapy dog. He was trained by a special program that works with severely traumatized children. His training is worth probably $50,000. Webb saw dollar signs and grabbed him. Ryan looked up from where he was gently brushing Ranger's fur. But Ranger wouldn't fight. That's why they hurt him. That's right, buddy, Detective Carter said gently. Ranger's too good to do what they wanted. Mr. Samuel had become a regular visitor too, bringing Ryan juice boxes and snacks, and sitting with him when his parents had to work. The old security guard had taken a special interest in the case, using his own connections to gather information. I've been asking around, Mr. Samuel told them that afternoon. Some of the homeless folks near the construction site saw things. A black van coming and going at weird hours, men in suits who didn't look like construction workers. Did anyone get a license plate? Detective Carter asked. Better. Old Tommy lives under the bridge. He's got a photographic memory. Gave me 3 different plate numbers he saw over the past week. Detective Carter's eyes lit up. That's exactly what we need. But even as the investigation progressed, Ryan was focused on something else entirely. He'd noticed that Ranger responded to certain words, specific commands that seemed ingrained in his training. "Watch this," Ryan said to Dr. Chen one morning. He stood in front of Ranger and held up his hand in a specific way, copying something he'd seen on a police dog TV show. "Ranger, alert." Immediately, despite his weakness, Ranger's ears perked up and his eyes became intensely focused. "That's definitely police or military training, Doctor," Chen said, amazed. "But therapy dogs don't usually have that kind of command training." Ryan had been experimenting with different words and gestures, and Ranger responded to many of them. It was like uncovering a secret language between them. "Ranger, friend," Ryan said, pointing to himself. The dog's tail wagged, and he tried to lick Ryan's face. "You're unlocking his past," Mr. Samuel observed. "Every command you discover tells us more about who he really was before Webb got him." That's when Ryan made a discovery that changed everything. He was flipping through a book about service dogs that Dr. Chen had given him when he saw a picture that made him gasp. "That's Ranger!" he exclaimed, pointing at a photograph of a German shepherd receiving a medal. "Look, it's him!" Dr. Chen took the book and studied the picture. The resemblance was unmistakable, despite Ranger's current poor condition. The caption read, "Thunder receives recognition for saving 3 children during apartment fire." "Oh my God," Dr. Chen whispered. She quickly pulled up the article on her computer. 2 years ago, a therapy dog named Thunder saved 3 disabled children from a burning building when their caretaker had a medical emergency. He dragged each child to safety, suffering burns in the process. Everyone gathered around to read the article. There was Thunder, Ranger, being called a hero, wearing a special vest that said Therapy Hero on it. "That's why Webb wanted him," Detective Carter said grimly. "A famous hero dog would be worth a fortune in the right circles." Ryan was crying now, but they were angry tears. He saved kids and they hurt him for money? "Some people don't see animals as living beings," Emma said, holding her son close. "They only see profit." "Well, they're going to see justice," Detective Carter said firmly. "This article is exactly what we needed. Stealing and abusing a recognized hero dog, that's going to add years to Webb's sentence." But their celebration was short-lived. That evening, as the storm finally broke and rain began pelting the windows, the power went out in the clinic. "It's okay, Doctor," Chen said, flipping on emergency lights. "We have a generator for the critical equipment." But Ryan felt uneasy. Ranger was restless too, his ears constantly moving, tracking sounds none of them could hear. The dog kept trying to stand, whimpering when his legs wouldn't support him. "Something's wrong," Ryan said. "Ranger knows something's wrong." "It's just the storm, sweetheart," Emma said, though she felt uneasy too. That's when they heard it, the sound of breaking glass from the back of the clinic. "Everyone stay here," Detective Carter commanded, drawing his service weapon. He'd stopped by to check on them when the storm started, a decision that now seemed providential. But before he could investigate, 2 men burst through the door to the recovery room. Ryan recognized one immediately. It was the man from the black sedan who'd been watching the clinic. "Nobody move," the man said, pointing a tranquilizer gun at them. "We're just here for the dog." "Over my dead body," Ryan said, throwing himself over Ranger's body. The 5-year-old's voice was fierce despite his terror. The second man laughed coldly. "Kids got guts. Too bad they're wasted on a mutt." "That mutt is evidence in a criminal investigation," Detective Carter said, his weapon trained on the intruders. "And you're under arrest." "I don't think so," the first man said. "You shoot, I tranquilize the kid. Want to risk what this dose would do to someone his size?" Everyone froze. The standoff was broken only by the sound of the storm outside, and Ranger's increasingly agitated whimpering. "Just take me," Ryan said suddenly. "Leave Ranger and take me instead." "Ryan, no!" Emma screamed, but Ryan stood up, his small frame shaking but determined. "I mean it. You want money, right? My parents will pay to get me back, but Ranger can't pay. He's just a dog to you." The men looked at each other, considering. But before they could respond, something extraordinary happened. Ranger, despite his injuries, despite the pain it must have caused, forced himself to stand. His legs shook violently, but he positioned himself between Ryan and the intruders. Then he did something none of them expected. He barked. Not just any bark, but a specific pattern, loud and commanding. "What's he doing?" one of the intruders asked nervously. Mr. Samuel, who'd been silent until now, smiled grimly. "That's a police emergency signal. Every K9 unit in the area just heard that. They're trained to respond." As if on cue, sirens began wailing in the distance, getting closer despite the storm. "We need to go," the second man said urgently. "Not without the dog," the first insisted. "Boss will kill us." He stepped forward, raising the tranquilizer gun toward Ranger. But Ryan did something that shocked everyone. He jumped in front of the gun just as the man pulled the trigger. The dart meant for Ranger hit Ryan in the shoulder. The 5-year-old gasped, his eyes widening in shock, then crumpled to the floor. "Ryan!" Emma's scream was primal, the sound of a mother watching her child fall. What happened next was pure instinct. Ranger, despite his weakness, launched himself at the man who'd shot Ryan. Years of training combined with protective rage, and the German Shepherd's jaws clamped down on the man's arm, forcing him to drop the weapon. Detective Carter moved instantly, taking down the second intruder while he was distracted by his partner's screams. Within seconds, both men were on the ground, and the room was filling with police officers who had responded to Ranger's emergency call, but none of that mattered to Emma and David, who were kneeling beside their unconscious son. Dr. Chen was already there, checking his vitals. "The dose was meant for a 100-pound dog," she said, her voice tight with controlled panic. "For a 40-pound child? We need to get him to the hospital immediately." Ranger had released the intruder and crawled to Ryan's side. The dog was whimpering, nuzzling the boy's face, trying to wake him up. When Ryan didn't respond, Ranger did something that broke everyone's hearts. He lay down beside the boy and placed his paw on Ryan's chest, right over his heart, as if trying to protect him even now. "We need an ambulance," Detective Carter was saying into his radio. "Priority 1, pediatric emergency." The storm was raging full force now, rain coming down so hard they could barely see out the windows. The roads would be flooding, making the journey to the hospital dangerous. "I'll drive," Mr. Samuel said suddenly. "I know every back road in this town. I can get us there faster than waiting for an ambulance in this weather." They moved quickly, David carrying Ryan while Emma held his hand. Ranger tried to follow, dragging himself on his injured legs, crying when they had to leave him behind. "I'll stay with Ranger, Doctor," Chen promised. "Go!" The ride to the hospital was the longest 10 minutes of their lives. Ryan was breathing, but shallowly, his small body limp in his father's arms. Emma kept talking to him, begging him to wake up, while Mr. Samuel navigated through streets that were rapidly becoming rivers. "Why did he do it?" David asked, his voice broken. "Why did he jump in front of that dart?" "Because that's who he is," Mr. Samuel said quietly, taking a corner at dangerous speed. "That boy's got more courage in his little finger than most adults have in their whole body." At the hospital, medical staff were waiting. They'd been alerted and had the antidote ready. As they wheeled Ryan away, Emma tried to follow, but a nurse stopped her. "We need to work," she said gently but firmly. "Wait here. We'll update you as soon as we can." The waiting room was bright and sterile, a stark contrast to the dark storm outside. Emma collapsed into David's arms, finally letting herself cry. Mr. Samuel sat nearby, his weathered hands clasped as if in prayer. "He's going to be okay," David kept saying, though whether he was trying to convince Emma or himself was unclear. Detective Carter arrived 30 minutes later, soaking wet and grim-faced. "Both suspects are in custody. They're already talking, trying to cut deals. Webb's whole operation is unraveling." "I don't care about Webb," Emma said flatly. "I only care about Ryan." "How's Ranger?" David asked. "Dr. Chen says he re-injured himself attacking that man, but he'll recover. He won't calm down, though. Keeps trying to get to the door, looking for Ryan." 2 hours passed, then 3. The storm continued to rage outside, and still no word about Ryan. Emma had called her mother, who was driving down from 3 states away. David paced endlessly, wearing a path in the waiting room carpet. Finally, a doctor emerged. Dr. Patricia Holloway was young, but had the confident bearing of someone who knew their job well. "Ryan is stable," she said immediately, and everyone sagged with relief. The tranquilizer dose was dangerous, but he's fighting it. "Off," He's a tough little guy. Can we see him? Emma asked desperately. Soon. He's been asking for someone named Ranger. Keeps saying he needs to know if Ranger is okay. That's the dog he saved, David explained. They're connected. Dr. Holloway nodded. I've seen bonds like that before. Sometimes they help with healing. Once Ryan's fully stable, maybe we can arrange something. She left them with hope, but also worry. Ryan was okay for now, but the full effects of the tranquilizer wouldn't be known for several more hours. Back at the clinic, Doctor. Chen was dealing with her own crisis. Ranger had worked himself into such a state that she was worried he'd cause permanent damage to his injuries. The dog absolutely would not calm down, constantly pulling toward the door, crying for Ryan. I've never seen anything like it, she told her assistant. It's like he knows Ryan's in danger. Then she had an idea. She pulled out her phone and called Detective Carter. Can you bring something of Ryan's? Maybe if Ranger can smell him, it'll calm him down. Within an hour, Emma had sent Ryan's favorite dinosaur t-shirt with Detective Carter. The moment Ranger smelled it, he grabbed it gently in his mouth and curled up with it, finally settling, but still whimpering occasionally. At the hospital, it was nearly dawn when Ryan finally woke up properly. His first word was, Ranger? He's okay, baby, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. He's at the clinic, waiting for you. He saved me, Ryan said weakly. Even though he could barely stand, he saved me. You saved each other, David said, holding his son's small hand. Ryan looked at his parents with eyes that seemed older than his 5 years. The bad men wanted to hurt him. I couldn't let them. You were so brave, Emma said. Too brave. You scared us so much. I'm sorry, Mama. But Ranger needed me to be brave. Dr. Holloway came in to check on him. You're a very lucky young man. That dose could have been fatal. Can I see Ranger? Ryan asked immediately. Not yet. You both need to heal first, but I heard he's been asking for you too, in his own way. Ryan smiled weakly. He talks to me. Not with words, but I understand him. Over the next 2 days, Ryan recovered with remarkable speed. The story of the 5-year-old who took a tranquilizer dart meant for a dog spread through the hospital, then the town, then beyond. Reporters started calling, wanting to interview the hero boy, but Emma and David refused them all. He's not a story, Emma said firmly. He's a little boy who needs to heal. But Ryan had other ideas. On his second day in the hospital, he asked for Detective Carter. I want to help catch the bad people, he said when the detective arrived. All of them, not just the ones who hurt Ranger. Ryan, you're 5 years old, Detective Carter said gently. This is adult business. But I know things, Ryan insisted. Ranger knows things. Together, we can help. Detective Carter looked at the determined little face and saw something that gave him pause. This wasn't just a child's fantasy. Ryan had shown incredible bravery and intuition throughout this whole ordeal. What kind of things? He asked. Ryan closed his eyes, thinking. The man with the tranquilizer gun, he had a tattoo on his wrist. A snake eating its tail. And he smelled like cigarettes and something else. Something chemical. Detective Carter pulled out his notebook. The snake eating its tail was an Ouroboros, often used by a specific crime syndicate. And the chemical smell. Can you remember anything else? Ryan nodded. They said Boss would kill them if they didn't get Ranger, but the way they said it, they were really scared, like the boss had hurt them before. These were observations beyond what most adults would notice, let alone a 5-year-old. Detective Carter began to realize that Ryan's bond with Ranger had somehow heightened his awareness, made him notice things others missed. Ryan, would you be willing to look at some photos? See if you recognize anyone? Ryan nodded eagerly. If it helps catch the people who hurt Ranger and other dogs. Meanwhile, at the clinic, something remarkable was happening. Ranger had begun refusing food, would barely drink water. Dr. Chen was getting seriously worried. It's like he's given up, she told Mr. Samuel, who'd been visiting daily. Without Ryan, he doesn't seem to want to fight anymore. Mr. Samuel had an idea. What if we bring him to the hospital? Not inside, but maybe to the parking lot. Let Ryan see him through the window? It was unconventional, but Dr. Chen was desperate. His injuries are stable enough for a short trip. Let's do it. They loaded Ranger into Dr. Chen's van, the dog clutching Ryan's dinosaur shirt the entire time. As they drove to the hospital, Ranger suddenly perked up, his nose working frantically. He could smell something, someone familiar. At the hospital, they coordinated with the staff to bring Ranger to a spot visible from Ryan's window. The moment the boy was wheeled to the window and saw the German Shepherd, his whole face lit up. "Ranger," he called out, pressing his hands against the glass. Ranger heard Ryan's voice and went crazy with joy, trying to stand despite his injuries, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. He barked, not the emergency signal, but happy, joyful barks. "Open the window," Ryan begged. "Please, just a little." The nurse looked at Dr. Holloway, who nodded. They opened the window just a few inches, enough for voices to carry. "Ranger, I'm okay," Ryan called out. "I'm getting better." "You have to get better too, okay? We have work to do." Ranger's response was to stand fully for the first time since his injuries, his legs shaking but holding. He barked once, clearly, as if saying, "Yes." "That's my brave boy," Ryan said, tears running down his cheeks. "We're partners, remember? Partners don't give up." Dr. Chen was crying openly. "In 20 years of veterinary medicine, I've never seen anything like this." They could only stay for a few minutes, but it was enough. Ranger returned to the clinic with renewed energy, finally eating, finally fighting to recover. And Ryan's recovery accelerated too, as if seeing Ranger had given him the boost he needed. But while they were healing, the investigation was revealing something darker than anyone had imagined. The two men who'd broken into the clinic had started talking, and what they revealed sent shockwaves through law enforcement. Marcus Webb wasn't just running a dog fighting ring. He was part of a massive criminal network that specialized in stealing and exploiting service animals. Dogs trained to detect drugs were being sold to drug dealers to help them avoid police. Therapy dogs were being sold to wealthy criminals who wanted protection without the hassle of training their own guards. And at the center of it all was someone called the Trainer, a mysterious figure who could reprogram stolen dogs, turn them from helpers into weapons. "We need Ryan and Ranger's help," Detective Carter told the family. "Ranger might be able to identify other stolen dogs, and Ryan notices things we miss." Emma was horrified. "Absolutely not. My son has been through enough." But Ryan overheard from his hospital bed. "Mama, if we don't help, other dogs will suffer like Ranger did. Other kids might lose their therapy dogs." It was David who finally spoke. "What would you need them to do?" Detective Carter explained. "We're planning a raid on a facility where we think stolen dogs are being held. We need Ranger to help identify which dogs are stolen service animals and which might be dangerous. And Ryan, we need his eyes, his ability to see what others don't." "It's too dangerous," Emma protested. "They wouldn't be in the raid," Detective Carter assured her. "They'd be in a safe location, watching through cameras, helping us understand what we're seeing." Ryan looked at his parents with those bright green eyes that had seen too much for a 5-year-old. "Please, Ranger and I can help. We're supposed to help." The decision would have to wait because, at that moment, Dr. Holloway came in with test results. "Ryan's blood work is almost normal. One more day and he can go home." Home. But what did that mean now? Their lives had been completely changed by a chance encounter with a dog and a drum. They were now part of something bigger, something that demanded courage they didn't know they had. That night, as Ryan slept in his hospital bed, he dreamed of Ranger. In the dream, the German Shepherd was strong and healthy, wearing a vest that said "Hero" on it. And beside him stood Ryan, wearing a matching vest. "We have work to do," Dream Ranger seemed to say. "I know," Dream Ryan replied, "and we'll do it together." Outside his window, the storm had finally passed, leaving the world washed clean and ready for a new beginning. But Ryan and Ranger's real journey was just beginning. The little boy who'd found a dog and a drum, and the dog who'd refused to become what evil wanted him to be. Together, they were about to take on something that would test every ounce of courage they possessed. The morning Ryan was released from the hospital, the entire town seemed to be holding its breath. Word had spread about the 5-year-old boy who'd taken a tranquilizer dart for a dog, and small crowds gathered outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. But Ryan only had eyes for one thing: reuniting with Ranger. "Can we go straight to the clinic?" Ryan asked, bouncing in his car seat despite his parents' warnings to take it easy. "That's where we're headed, buddy," David said, catching his son's eye in the rearview mirror. When they pulled up to Dr. Chen's clinic, Ryan practically flew out of the car. His legs were still wobbly from his hospital stay, but nothing could slow him down. The moment he pushed through the clinic doors, he heard it. Ranger's bark, different from any sound the dog had made before. It was pure joy. "Ranger!" Ryan called out, running toward the recovery room. The German Shepherd was standing, actually standing on all four legs, in the middle of the room. His tail was wagging so hard his entire back end was moving. The moment Ryan appeared, Ranger let out a sound that was part bark, part howl, part cry of relief. Ryan dropped to his knees and Ranger limped forward, collapsing into the boy's arms. They stayed like that for long minutes, Ryan burying his face in Ranger's fur while the dog licked every inch of the boy's face he could reach. "I missed you so much," Ryan whispered. "Did you miss me?" Ranger's response was to press closer, his whole body vibrating with happiness. Dr. Chen wiped tears from her eyes. "He barely ate while you were gone. It's like he was waiting for you to come back before he'd really try to get better." "Well, I'm here now," Ryan said firmly, "and we're going to get better together." Detective Carter had been waiting for them at the clinic. The investigation had reached a critical point, and they needed Ryan and Ranger's help more than ever. "We've located the main facility," he explained to the family. "It's an abandoned warehouse complex about 30 miles from here. Our surveillance shows at least 20 dogs inside, possibly more." 20 dogs? Ryan's eyes widened. "All stolen?" "We think so. But we need to be sure which ones are victims and which ones might have been turned into guard dogs." That's where Ranger comes in. Detective Carter pulled out a tablet showing grainy surveillance footage. Ranger was trained to recognize other service dogs, wasn't he? By scent, by behavior? Dr. Chen nodded. It was part of his therapy training. He could identify other working dogs to avoid territorial disputes during joint operations. Then he might be able to help us identify which dogs need rescue and which might be dangerous. Ryan studied the footage, his young face serious. "When do we help?" "Tomorrow night," Detective Carter said. "But Ryan, you and Ranger will be in a mobile command unit, far from any danger. You'll watch through cameras and help us understand what we're seeing." Emma still looked worried, but Ryan reached for her hand. "Mama, those dogs have families missing them, just like you miss me when I was in the hospital. We have to help them go home." How could she argue with that? The next day was spent preparing. Ranger needed a special vest fitted, one that would protect his still healing injuries while allowing him to move. Ryan was given a small headset so he could communicate with the police team. "You're the youngest consultant we've ever had," Detective Carter told him with a smile. "Ranger's the real consultant," Ryan said seriously. "I just translate." That evening, as the sun set, they loaded into the mobile command unit, a large van filled with monitors and communication equipment. Ryan sat in a special booster seat where he could see all the screens, Ranger laying at his feet. "Team 1 in position," a voice crackled over the radio. "Team 2 ready," came another voice. Detective Carter looked at Ryan. "You ready, buddy?" Ryan put his hand on Ranger's head. The dog looked up at him with those intelligent brown eyes, and Ryan felt a surge of confidence. "We're ready," he said. The warehouse appeared on the monitors, a sprawling complex of connected buildings that looked like they'd been abandoned for years. But infrared cameras showed heat signatures, lots of them. "I count at least 25 dogs," one officer reported, "and 6 human signatures." "Wait," Ryan said suddenly, leaning forward. "Look at that building on the left. See how it's newer than the others?" Detective Carter zoomed in. Ryan was right. One section had clearly been renovated recently. "That's where they keep the special ones," Ryan said with certainty. "The ones worth the most money." "How do you know that?" an officer asked over the radio. Ryan couldn't explain it, but somehow he just knew. Maybe it was the way Ranger had tensed when that building appeared on screen, or maybe it was intuition. "Trust him," Detective Carter said. "The kid's been right about everything so far." The raid began at exactly 8 p.m. Officers moved in simultaneously from all directions. Through the cameras, Ryan and Ranger watched as doors were breached and police flooded in. The first building contained cages, dozens of them, each holding a miserable-looking dog. Some cowered, some barked aggressively. All looked neglected. "Ranger, look," Ryan said, pointing at the screen. Ranger stood, his nose almost touching the monitor. Suddenly he barked, 3 short barks. "What's that mean?" Detective Carter asked. That one, Ryan pointed to a golden retriever in the corner cage. Ranger says that's a service dog, a real one. Mark cage 7 for priority rescue, Detective Carter said into his radio. They went through each dog on the screens, Ranger signaling which ones he recognized as service or therapy animals. His accuracy was uncanny. Every dog he identified was later confirmed to have been reported stolen. Then they reached the renovated building, and what they found inside made everyone gasp. It wasn't just a holding facility. It was a training center, but for all the wrong reasons. Dogs were being taught to attack, to be aggressive, to forget their original training. That's horrible, Ryan whispered, tears in his eyes. In the center of the room was a man in his 50s, trying desperately to destroy papers and computer equipment. Even through the grainy camera footage, his panic was obvious. That's him, one of the arrested suspects said from where he was watching in custody. That's the trainer. But Ryan was focused on something else. In the corner of the room, separated from the others, was a German shepherd that looked remarkably like Ranger. Ranger, look, Ryan said urgently. Ranger saw the other dog and went absolutely still. Then he let out a long, mournful howl. What is it, boy? Ryan asked. Detective Carter was already pulling up records. Oh my God, that's Kaiser. He was Ranger's brother, from the same litter, the same training program. His brother? Ryan gasped. Ranger has a brother? On the screen, they watched as officers approached Kaiser carefully. The dog was aggressive, snarling and snapping, clearly transformed into something he was never meant to be. Ranger was crying now, actual tears that Ryan had never seen from a dog before. We have to save him, Ryan said desperately. He's family. He's dangerous, Ryan, Detective Carter said gently. The trainer has changed him. No, Ryan said firmly. Nobody's too changed to be saved. Ranger taught me that. The raid was a complete success. All 6 criminals were arrested, including the trainer, whose real name was Dr. Marcus Steinberg, a disgraced animal behaviorist who'd lost his license for unethical practices. 28 dogs were rescued, though many would need extensive rehabilitation. But Ryan couldn't stop thinking about Kaiser. We have to help him, Ryan told his parents that night. Ranger needs his brother back. Sweetheart, Kaiser is dangerous, Emma said gently. He's been programmed to hurt people. So was Ranger supposed to be, Ryan pointed out. But he didn't let them change him. Maybe Kaiser just needs someone to believe in him too. The next morning, Ryan and Ranger visited the animal control facility where Kaiser was being held. The dog was in a reinforced cage, labeled Dangerous, Do Not Approach. Ranger whimpered when he saw his brother, pressing against the bars of the viewing area. Kaiser looked up at the sound. For just a moment, his aggressive facade cracked, and confusion flickered in his eyes. He recognized Ranger's scent, even after all this time. He remembers, Ryan whispered. Look, he remembers Ranger. Dr. Chen, who had come with them, studied Kaiser carefully. The training isn't as deep as they think. See how he's fighting it? Part of him knows this isn't who he's supposed to be. Can you help him? Ryan asked hopefully. It would take months, maybe years. And there's no guarantee. We'll help, Ryan said immediately. Ranger and I will help. What followed was one of the most extraordinary rehabilitation efforts anyone had ever seen. Every day, Ryan and Ranger would visit Kaiser. At first, they could only be in the same room with bars between them. Kaiser would snarl and bark, but Ranger would just lie down calmly, showing his brother that there was no threat. Ryan would read stories, the same ones he'd read to Ranger when he was recovering. He'd talk about their adventures, about how Ranger had been hurt, but got better. Slowly, day by day, Kaiser began to calm. The breakthrough came 3 weeks later. Ryan was reading his favorite book about a brave knight and a dragon when Kaiser suddenly whined. Not an aggressive sound, but a lonely one. He's remembering, Doctor, Chen said in amazement. The sound of reading. Therapy dogs are read to as part of their training to work with children. Ranger stood and walked to the bars separating him from Kaiser. He pushed his nose through, and for the first time, Kaiser didn't try to bite. Instead, the 2 brothers touched noses, and Kaiser's tail gave the tiniest wag. He's still in there, Ryan said, tears of joy running down his face. The real Kaiser is still in there. The rehabilitation took 3 months. 3 months of patient work, of Ryan refusing to give up, of Ranger showing his brother what it meant to be good again. The town watched in amazement as the dangerous dog slowly transformed back into what he was meant to be. The day Kaiser was finally released from isolation was emotional for everyone. He was still nervous, still struggling with his programming, but when Ryan approached him without any barriers between them, Kaiser did something that shocked everyone. He lay down and exposed his belly, the ultimate sign of trust from a dog. "Hi, Kaiser," Ryan said softly, gently rubbing the dog's belly. "Welcome back." But the story didn't end there. The arrest of the trainer and Marcus Webb had exposed a nationwide network of animal trafficking. The FBI got involved, and Ryan and Ranger became unofficial consultants, helping identify stolen dogs from photographs and videos. 6 months after that first morning at the construction site, Ryan stood in front of Congress. At 5.5 years old, he was the youngest person ever to testify before a congressional committee. Ranger and Kaiser sat on either side of him, wearing matching vests that said "Therapy Heroes." "My name is Ryan Miller," he said into the microphone, his voice clear and strong. "6 months ago, I found Ranger in a drum. Bad people hurt him and left him to die. But Ranger didn't die, and he didn't become mean like I wanted. He stayed good." The room was completely silent, everyone hanging on the little boy's words. Dogs like Ranger and Kaiser help people. They save lives, they comfort sick kids, they find lost people. But bad people steal them and try to turn them into weapons. That's not right. Ryan looked directly at the lawmakers. "You make laws to protect people, but animals need protection too. Ranger protected me even when he could barely stand. Now, we need to protect dogs like him." His testimony, along with the evidence from the raid, led to the passage of Ranger's Law, federal legislation that made stealing service animals a serious federal crime with mandatory prison sentences. The day the law passed, Ryan and his family celebrated at the park where it all began. The construction site had been transformed into a memorial garden with a statue of a German shepherd and a little boy at its center. "You did it, buddy," David said, ruffling his son's hair. "You changed the world." "We did it," Ryan corrected, hugging both Ranger and Kaiser. "All of us together." Dr. Chen had started a rehabilitation program for abused service animals with Ryan as her youngest volunteer. Mr. Samuel had come out of retirement to help train security for the program. Even Detective Carter visited regularly, bringing new cases where Ryan's unique insight might help. But the most amazing development came a year later. Ryan, now 6.5, stood in front of his first grade class for show and tell. "This is Ranger and Kaiser," he said proudly. "They're brothers and they're heroes. But more than that, they're proof that nobody is too broken to be fixed, and nobody is too lost to be found." His teacher, Mrs. Williams, had tears in her eyes. She'd followed the story from the beginning, but seeing the three of them together, the boy who'd risked everything for a dog, and the two dogs who'd found their way back to goodness, was overwhelming. "Ryan, would you like to tell the class about your new program?" she prompted. Ryan's face lit up. "Ranger, Kaiser, and I visit hospitals and schools. We help kids who are scared or sad or sick. Ranger and Kaiser understand what it's like to be hurt, so they're really good at making other people feel better." One little girl raised her hand. "My cousin has a therapy dog." "Is that like what Ranger does?" "Exactly," Ryan said. "But Ranger and Kaiser are special because they survive bad things. So when we visit kids who have survived bad things too, the dogs understand. They really understand." The program, officially called Second Chances, had already helped dozens of traumatized children. Something about seeing dogs who'd been through terrible experiences but came out the other side gave kids hope that they could too. Marcus Webb was sentenced to 15 years in prison for animal cruelty, insurance fraud, and running a criminal enterprise. The trainer got 20 years. The entire network was dismantled, and over 200 stolen dogs were recovered and returned to their families. But for Ryan, the biggest victory was more personal. One evening, as he sat between Ranger and Kaiser on his front porch, his mother asked him what he was thinking about. "That morning at the construction site," Ryan said, "I almost didn't go look when I heard the whimpering. I was scared I'd get in trouble." "But you did go," Emma said, sitting beside him. "Yeah, and it changed everything." Ryan looked at Ranger, who was sleeping peacefully. his head on Ryan's lap. One choice, Mama. One choice to be brave instead of scared. And look what happened. Kaiser, who had become just as bonded to Ryan as Ranger was, put his head on the boy's other leg. The three of them sat there as the sun set, a testament to the power of compassion and courage. The story spread far beyond their small town. News outlets around the world picked it up. The boy who saved the hero dog became an international sensation. Letters poured in from children everywhere, inspired by Ryan's bravery. One letter particularly touched Ryan. It was from a girl in Germany whose therapy dog had been stolen and never recovered. "Dear Ryan," she wrote, "I'm 9 years old, and my dog Luna was taken 2 years ago. I thought I'd never hope again, but your story shows that miracles can happen. Thank you for not giving up on Ranger. You've given me hope that maybe someday, someone will find Luna too." Ryan wrote back immediately, and with Detective Carter's help, they managed to connect the girl's case with German police. 3 weeks later, Luna was found in a similar facility in Berlin, identified by the same methods Ryan and Ranger had developed. The reunion video of the girl and Luna went viral, with millions of views and comments thanking Ryan and Ranger for inspiring the search. Dr. Chen, reflecting on everything that had happened, said something that perfectly captured the journey. Ryan didn't just save Ranger that day, he started a movement that says every life matters, that kindness is stronger than cruelty, and that sometimes the smallest among us can make the biggest difference. On the second anniversary of finding Ranger, the town held a celebration. The Second Chances Park was packed with families, many with rescued dogs. A stage had been set up, and the mayor was preparing to give Ryan and Ranger a special award. But just before the ceremony, Ryan noticed something. A little boy, probably 4 years old, was crying by the playground. He was pointing at a storm drain, where a small sound could be heard, a kitten's meow. Without hesitation, Ryan and Ranger went over. The kitten was visible, but too far down to reach. "Don't worry," Ryan told the little boy. "Ranger and I know all about rescuing animals from tight spots." With the help of some adults and a lot of patience, they managed to rescue the kitten. The little boy hugged it tight, looking at Ryan with awe. "Are you the boy from TV? The one who saved the dog?" Ryan smiled. "Yeah, but you know what? You're a hero too. You heard the kitten when nobody else did. You cared when you could have just walked away." "Really?" The boy's eyes widened. "Really? That's how it starts. You hear someone who needs help, and you choose to care." As Ryan walked back to the stage for his award, with Ranger and Kaiser beside him, he realized something important. The story that started with a dog and a drum had become so much bigger. It had become about choosing compassion over indifference, bravery over fear, and love over hate. The mayor presented Ryan with a medal, but in his speech Ryan did something unexpected. He called up everyone who had helped: Dr. Chen, Mr. Samuel, Detective Carter, his parents, and even some of the children who'd been helped by the Second Chances program. "This medal isn't just mine," Ryan said. "It belongs to everyone who chooses to help instead of hurt, to care instead of ignore. Ranger taught me that even when you're broken and scared, you can still be brave. And if a hurt dog and a drum can be brave, then all of us can too." The crowd erupted in applause, but Ryan wasn't finished. "I want to ask everyone here to make a promise," he said. "Promise that if you see someone who needs help, person or animal, you won't walk away. You'll be brave like Ranger was brave. You'll be kind like the people who helped us. Because that's how we change the world, one rescue at a time." Everyone in the crowd raised their hands, making the promise. It was a powerful moment that would be remembered for years to come. As the celebration continued, Ryan sat with Ranger and Kaiser, watching children play with rescued dogs, seeing families that had been brought together by shared compassion. "We did good, didn't we, boys?" Ryan whispered to his dogs. Ranger and Kaiser both licked his face, their tails wagging in perfect synchronization. Detective Carter approached them. "Ryan, I just got a call. There's been another dog fighting ring discovered in the next state. They want to know if you and Ranger could—" "We'll help," Ryan said immediately. "That's what we do now. We help." As the sun set over Second Chances Park, 3 figures sat silhouetted against the golden light. A little boy and 2 German shepherds. They had started as strangers, brought together by cruelty and circumstance. They had become family, bound by love and purpose. Ryan thought about that scared dog in the drum, about his own fear when he'd approached, about all the moments when it would have been easier to walk away. But he hadn't walked away, and that single decision had changed not just his life, but hundreds of lives. "You know what, Ranger?" Ryan said softly. "That morning when I found you, I thought I was saving you. But really, you saved me too. You showed me who I'm supposed to be." Ranger looked up at him with those wise brown eyes, and Ryan could swear the dog understood every word. Maybe he did. After everything they'd been through, anything seemed possible. The local news crew that had been covering the celebration approached for one final interview. "Ryan, what would you tell other kids who want to help animals but don't know how?" the reporter asked. Ryan thought for a moment, then smiled. "Start small. Be kind to every animal you meet. Learn about them. And if you see one that needs help, don't be afraid to speak up. Adults don't always notice things kids do. Your voice matters, even if you're small." And what's next for you and Ranger and Kaiser? Tomorrow, we're visiting a children's hospital. There's a girl there who's afraid of dogs because one bit her once, but she saw our story and wants to meet Ranger and Kaiser. She wants to not be afraid anymore. That must make you proud. Ryan looked at his dogs, then back at the reporter. "It makes me grateful. Grateful that I heard Ranger that morning, grateful that he trusted me, and grateful that our story can help other people be brave too." As the interview ended and the celebration wound down, the Miller family headed home. Ryan walked between Ranger and Kaiser, holding their leashes loosely. The dogs didn't need to be led. They knew exactly where they belonged. Emma watched her son and couldn't help but marvel at how much he'd grown. Not physically, he was still small for his age, but in spirit. He'd faced down criminals, testified before Congress, and inspired a movement, all because he'd chosen compassion over fear. "Proud of you, buddy," David said, ruffling Ryan's hair. "Thanks, Dad. But I didn't do it alone." "No," David agreed. "You had Ranger, and Kaiser, and Dr. Chen, and Mr. Samuel, and Detective Carter, and you and Mom," Ryan listed. "That's what I learned. When you try to help, other people want to help too. Good spreads just like bad does, but good is stronger." That night, as Ryan got ready for bed, Ranger and Kaiser took their usual positions, one on each side of his bed, guardian angels in fur. "Hey guys," Ryan said into the darkness. "Remember when everyone thought you were just broken dogs that nobody wanted?" Two tails thumped against the floor. "Now you're heroes. Real heroes who save people. But you know what the best part is?" The thumping got louder. "The best part is that you were always heroes, even when you were hurt and scared. Being a hero isn't about being strong or perfect. It's about caring even when caring is hard." Ryan's words hung in the air, profound wisdom from a child who'd learned it through experience. Outside, the world continued with all its problems and pain. There were still stolen dogs out there, still animals being abused, still people choosing cruelty over kindness. But in one small town, because of one small boy and one injured dog, things were different. The ripples of their story continued to spread. Veterinary schools started teaching about the Ryan and Ranger case. Police departments revised their protocols for dealing with animal-related crimes. Animal shelters reported increased adoptions as people were inspired to give second chances to abandoned pets. But perhaps the most important change was in the hearts of everyone who heard the story. The image of a 5-year-old boy protecting an injured German shepherd, refusing to let fear or adult skepticism stop him from doing what was right. That image stayed with people. Parents used the story to teach their children about compassion. Teachers incorporated it into lessons about courage. Even hardened criminals in prison were reportedly moved by the tale of a dog who refused to become violent despite everything done to him. 3 years later, Ryan, now 8 years old, stood before another audience. This time, it was at the United Nations, where he'd been invited to speak about animal welfare as part of a children's rights summit. "My name is Ryan Miller," he began, his voice still clear, but deeper now. "When I was 5, I found a dog named Ranger in a drum. Everyone said he was dangerous, that I should stay away. But I looked in his eyes and saw something else. I saw someone who needed help." Ranger and Kaiser sat beside him on the stage, older now, but still proud and strong. That moment taught me that sometimes the world tells us to be afraid when we should be brave. It tells us to walk away when we should step forward. It tells us something is hopeless when really it just needs someone to hope for it. The audience, diplomats, activists, world leaders listened intently. Every person in this room has the power to be someone's hero. You don't need superpowers. You don't need to be big or strong. You just need to care and act on that caring. Ranger taught me that. And now, I'm teaching you. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, a reporter asked Ryan if he ever regretted getting involved that morning at the construction site. Ryan looked confused. Regret saving Ranger? That's like asking if I regret breathing. Ranger isn't just my dog. He's my teacher, my partner, my best friend. He showed me who I'm meant to be. And who's that? Someone who doesn't walk away from suffering. Someone who believes in second chances. Someone who knows that love is stronger than hate, always. As Ryan walked off the stage with his 2 German shepherds, the Secretary General stopped him. Young man, you've reminded all of us why we do this work. Sometimes we forget that changing the world starts with one act of compassion. It started with a whimper, Ryan corrected with a smile. Just a small sound from a drum that most people would have ignored. But I heard it, and I listened, and everything changed. Back home, the construction site where it all began had been fully transformed. The Second Chances Memorial Park was now a destination, with people coming from all over to see where the famous rescue had taken place. The statue of Ryan and Ranger had become a symbol of hope, but for Ryan, the most meaningful moments were the quiet ones. The evenings when he sat with Ranger and Kaiser, reading to children at the library. The mornings when they visited nursing homes, bringing joy to elderly residents. The afternoons at the hospital, helping scared kids feel brave. One day, a mother approached them after a therapy session. Her daughter had been traumatized in a car accident and hadn't spoken in months. But after meeting Ranger and Kaiser, hearing their story from Ryan, she had finally said her first words. Good dogs. Thank you, the mother said through tears. Thank you for not giving up on that dog and the drum. Because of that, my daughter is finding her voice again. Ryan hugged the woman, then knelt beside her daughter. You know what's special about you and Ranger? You both know what it's like to be hurt and scared. But you're both choosing to be brave anyway. That makes you heroes. The little girl smiled. The first smile her mother had seen since the accident. As they walked home that day, Ryan reflected on the journey. From a scared 5-year-old sneaking away from his parents to explore a construction site, to an 8-year-old speaking at the United Nations. From a dying dog and a drum to 2 therapy heroes helping heal trauma around the world. You know what I think? Ryan said to his dogs. I think everyone has a drum moment. A moment when they hear someone calling for help and have to decide whether to listen or walk away. Our story shows what happens when you listen. Ranger and Kaiser walked closer to him, their bodies pressed against his legs in that protective way they had developed. The sun was setting as they reached their house, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Emma and David were on the porch, waiting for them, as always. How was today? Emma asked. We helped a little girl find her voice, Ryan said simply. It was a good day. They're all good days when you're helping people, David observed. No, Ryan corrected thoughtfully. They're meaningful days. There's a difference. Good days are easy. Meaningful days change lives. That night, as Ryan prepared for bed with Ranger and Kaiser in their usual spots, he pulled out a journal he'd been keeping. In it, he wrote down every person and animal they had helped, every life that had been touched by their story. The list was pages long now, and growing every day. Dear Ranger, he wrote that night, today marks 3 years since I found you. 3 years since you changed my life. People call me a hero for saving you, but we both know the truth. You saved me too. You showed me that being small doesn't mean being powerless. Being hurt doesn't mean being broken. And being scared doesn't mean you can't be brave. Tomorrow we have a big day. We're meeting with a group of kids who want to start their own animal rescue program at their school. They want to be like us, they said. But really, they just want to be kind in a world that sometimes forgets how. I promise. You, Ranger, and you too, Kaiser, that as long as I live, I'll keep telling our story. Not because it makes us special, but because it shows everyone that they can be special too. They just have to listen for the whimpers, look for the ones who need help, and be brave enough to act. Thank you for trusting me that day in the drum. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like, and thank you for being my best friend, my partner, and my hero. Love, always, Ryan." As he closed the journal, Ryan heard something outside, a small whimper. He went to the window and saw a stray cat in the yard, limping and clearly hurt. Without hesitation, Ryan headed for the door, Ranger and Kaiser right behind him. "Another rescue?" Emma asked, having heard him get up. "Always," Ryan said with a smile. "That's what we do." As the three of them went out into the night to help another creature in need, the cycle continued. Compassion leading to action, action leading to change, change inspiring others to act with compassion. The boy who found a German shepherd in a broken drum had started something that would never end, a legacy of kindness that would ripple through generations. Every rescued animal, every helped child, every person who chose compassion over indifference, they were all part of Ryan and Ranger's story now. And the story was far from over. It was, in fact, just beginning. Because somewhere out there, in every town and city, there were drums waiting to be opened, creatures waiting to be saved, and children waiting to be brave enough to be heroes. The morning news would report another successful rescue by the famous trio. Social media would share pictures of Ryan, Ranger, and Kaiser with another saved animal. The world would smile and feel a little more hopeful. But for Ryan, it was simpler than all that. It was about keeping a promise he'd made to a scared dog in a drum, that he would never let anyone be alone and afraid again if he could help it. And he would keep that promise, one rescue at a time, for the rest of his life. If this incredible story of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dogs touched your heart, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to our channel for more amazing true stories of hope and heroism. And comment below. Have you ever had a moment when you chose to help instead of walk away? What happened when you listened to someone's call for help? Where are you watching from? And what animal has changed your life? Your story might inspire the next person to be brave, to choose kindness, and to remember that no one is too small to make a difference. Remember, heroes aren't born. They're made in the moments when we choose love over fear. Like, share, subscribe, and let's spread this message of hope together.